Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tom Baker Show. It is great to be back with you once again, wherever you are watching us from. We are grateful that you're with us. We hope that you will enjoy the next 45 minutes or so to an hour as we talk racing here. And my co-host, Jacob Seelman, with us once again. Jacob, we have a ton of stuff to talk about here, and I can only stop and think here for a moment that, of course, Radical Race Gear, which is one of our main sponsors of this show, is really into short track racing. And that's where we're going to start because we had a bombshell that came out of the sprint car ranks just 24 hours ago that neither you or I saw coming. And I've had 24 hours to digest this, and I still don't believe it. Jacob, we have had a split between perhaps the two most big name people in World of Outlaws racing for the last almost 20 years, Donny Schatz and Tony Stewart Racing, no more.
Okay, so I'm going to hold here for 2 seconds and illustrate exactly what my brain did when this came out yesterday.
Yeah.
That was literally my instant reaction was,
mind
oh
blown.
my gosh, what the world is. Yeah, mind blown, 100%. This has been rumored slightly for about 4 years now, and we would get to the end of a year and they would continue into next year, and we just go, you know, okay, it's just, people starting rumors, whatever. Well, this year there were no rumors, and then we get to the end of Knoxville and it comes to Tuesday and boom, all of a sudden it's done. In my entire lifetime of paying professional attention to sprint car racing, there has been no Tony Stewart Racing without Donny Schatz, and there has not been Donny Schatz without Tony Stewart Racing. So this was one of those unthinkable moments that finally came to pass. Tony has finally released some comments last night into this morning and kind of illustrated a little bit more. When this first came out, we weren't sure whether it was mutual, whether it came from one side or the other. The way Tony told the story, to a couple of media outlets overnight, it was him that called Donny on Tuesday morning to let them know that to let him know that they were making a change. Obviously, as Tony said, Donny's not necessarily going to take that well. I don't think, Donny completely expected the timing of it, but I do somewhat agree with what Tony referenced as well, in that making the change now gives both parties time to kind of figure out what's next in a big picture sense for 2026 going forward. I mean, it's Donny Schatz. He's won more than 300 World of Outlaws races and 10 championships. You don't think there are going to be teams lining up now that he's available going, please come drive our race car? He's going to have somewhere to finish the season. To me, that's not a question of whether that will happen. It's just a question of, will Donny just take the first thing that comes available? And I don't think so. I think Donny is a smarter and savvier veteran than that to want to take the right situation that he feels like for him. So, where contractually the 15 car has to be back in action this weekend to not miss an Outlaws race because of their platinum deal, Donny has a little bit of leeway to take his time and figure out what's going to work best for him, at least to get to the end of the year, if that's something he wants to do. I mean, Donny Schatz has built up quite the nest egg in his time racing sprint cars. If he wanted to take a little time off to really figure out what's next, I'm sure he has more than the ability to do that as well. I'm not going to speculate on that. And Donny's been pretty quiet on that front, I would say, over the last 24 hours or so. I mean, to me, to draw some parallels to other sports, it's kind of the same feeling I got when Brady left the Patriots, or to draw back a little bit further when I was really young, to Michael Jordan leaving the Bulls the first time. This is just one of those dynasties that you don't think is ever going to end until it finally did.
Interesting comparisons there. I'm more interested in focusing on the context of this at this point than I am in making comparisons to other sports. When it first broke, it really didn't specify, was this Donny choosing to leave or was this Tony Stewart Racing making a change? It simply said, this is what's going on. And Kerry Madsen's coming in for the balance of the season, who, of course, drove for Tony in the past, which is a safe thing for Tony Stewart Racing to do.
Sure.
But now you seem to indicate that maybe Tony hinted that this wasn't necessarily Donny's choice, that they wanted to make a change. And so I have questions. I mean, when you look, first of all, at what would make Tony Stewart toss Donny Schatz out of his car before the season's over, okay, what event or what mindset is the precipitating mindset for that kind of a sudden change? Because at this point, it feels a little to me like something had to have taken place between the two of them in terms of being on different pages for this to dissolve before the season's over. Otherwise, I don't get it, because you're bringing in Kerry Madsen, who certainly can be a capable driver and probably can win races in the car. But, you're basically going from one driver to another. I'm not sure why you make this change if you're Tony Stewart. What kind of light can you shed on that?
So let's back this up 4 or 5 years to the point where TSR took on the Ford engine program for their sprint car team, and we those of us who know that have watched the sport know that they just could never get a feel or what Donny needed underneath him to give him what he needed to win races. And that's been about a 5-year process now. And that was really one of the things that Tony drew to. This was in an extended Q&A session with Flow Racing that broke in the late evening of the announcement day. Basically, that Tony said, look, Donny was miserable driving the cars, and we have tried every engine package we can think of to try, every shock package we can think of to try, all sorts of parts and pieces, and just have not been able to recapture, for whatever reason, what Donny needs to be able to be at his most successful. And Tony likened it to, as Albert Einstein would say, the definition of insanity. You keep trying things and trying things and trying things, and it keeps not working and not working and not working. And eventually you just run out of things to try. And that's kind of where he felt like they were at, where Donny felt like they were at, when both sides are miserable. And Tony's biggest point was this. He said, I have too much respect for the driver that I know Donny Schatz is, and for what I know he's been capable of since day one with us, to continue to let him be miserable driving a race car and not succeeding. Eventually, he's like, you run out of things to try, and maybe just have to accept, as hard as it is, that maybe what you had just isn't working anymore, and it's best for everybody to try something different in hopes that you can find what you're working elsewhere. It was kind of, to me, like, you don't think it's possible for a dynasty like that to run its course, but that was kind of the mindset that I got out of reading Tony's comments, was that he felt they had literally tried everything in their arsenal that they knew to try to fix this, air quotes, and it just hadn't gotten back to where they needed it to be. And maybe you do accept that it's just run its course and it's time to, to do something different.
But why now? Why not at the end of the season? I'm just curious about the timing of this, because I think bringing in Kerry Madsen, I don't know, maybe Kerry, you sort of find a little magic there. It felt like Schatz had a good run the other night. I'm just curious of the timing of this, because it would have felt to me like this would have been smoother at the end of the year. You know that Kerry is not going to be the long-term answer for Tony Stewart, most likely. So I'm really confused by the timing and why Tony just wouldn't have ridden it out.
So my understanding to the timing of this is really with a season built the way the World of Outlaws season is built. It's
Yep.
very hard because there's such a limited off season that if you wait to make a change until the off season, you're basically going into a year with no ability to know what you're walking into, no prep time, no anything like that. Whereas if you make the change now, it at least gives both Donny and TSR an opportunity to assess where they're at now, what they need, and put themselves on the best possible foot going forward for 2026. Donny was buried outside the top 5 in the Outlaws points. There was,
Yeah,
even if he had stayed with TSR, there was no hope of him winning a driver's championship this year.
that's
That
true.
had
Yeah.
really long since gone by with how good David Gravel and Buddy Kofoid in particular have been this season. So, at that point, why wouldn't you at least explore what your other options are to find out what's going to make sense for you so that you're not wasting half a year next year before you know before you know if what you're walking into is truly right or whether you're just not in the right position. I think for me, just the timing to give both sides an opportunity to get their footing back underneath them was really what this came down to more than anything. I mean, like I said earlier, contractually, the platinum contract, TSR has to field the car for the rest of the season, but
Right.
they're not truly in contention to go out and steal an owner's championship. Donnie's not truly in contention to go out and steal a driver's championship. This is an opportunity for both sides at the end of the day to, start to put together the pieces of a new puzzle so that hopefully by the time you get to Volusia in February, the puzzle is at least mostly, if not fully assembled, rather than still in a bunch of pieces trying to figure out which ones are going to go together.
Whew, boy. Well, it'll be interesting to see where this goes for both sides. We know
Yeah,
that
it will
Kerry
be.
Madsen is going to finish the year for Tony. So that's a known, and we can make some sort of assumptions on, expectations based upon one, their past relationship, and two, obviously the fact that Kerry is capable of winning races at any point if the car
Yep.
is. So what we don't know is now what happens with Donny Schatz. Now, you made the point that there will be offers for Donny to be in somebody's car. The problem we have right now is we're 3/4 of the way through the season, and it almost feels like somebody would have to release somebody else or add a car to their team in order to put Donny Schatz in it. And you look at some of the sort of fill-ins that are already existing in 410 sprint cars right now, and you kind of wonder where would the opportunity come from for Donny, or does Donny maybe look at this as an opportunity to kind of restart his own team, knowing that he has a couple of nieces that are coming up through the ranks and are very promising young racers, both of them, Amelia and Layla Eisenchank. And so, is this the time when Donnie uses the next few months to just put pieces together for 26 and do it himself?
It's entirely possible. And, they back when the rumors first existed of Donnie potentially leaving TSR, there was talk of, could he go back to doing it himself? And I'm sure if the business reasons are right, and like you mentioned, to be able to potentially put a team in place for his two nieces going forward into the future, that that's entirely possible to see happen. Will it? I can't answer that right now. Donny Schatz is the only one that can answer that. But
Sure.
I basically what I can say is after seeing what we've seen with this breakup, nothing that there is nothing out there that could surprise me at this point more than just this breakup initially even happening already has. At this point, seeing that Donny and TSR are no more, I could go so far as to say literally anything is possible in sprint car racing at this point. We still
Well,
don't know how long Aaron. I'll bring this up. Real quick. We still don't know how long Aaron Reitzel may have to be out of the 87 car this season. We know Justin Sanders was a short-term answer
yep.
for the Knoxville Nationals, but I mean, Justin has obligations out in California with the ride that he has out there. He's not going to be I don't think, a feasible option for any more high limit races if Reitzel has to miss some more of that schedule. So could that be an option? I don't know, but like I said, at this point, I'm one to believe now that anything is possible that you could dream up.
No doubt. Its silly season has begun with a bombshell in 410 sprint car racing nationally. And it's going to be interesting to see what other dominoes fall or where all the pieces wind up fitting for 2026. I'm sure we'll have more conversation about this ongoing development in future shows. Before we hit break, Jacob, I want to talk a little bit about the our Must-See Racing event that you were at one of my favorite tracks in all the land last weekend. Tell us a little bit about Ryan Litt's victory in Berlin.
Well, it was more of the same, pretty much. This is now 4 years in a row that we've gone to Berlin in the late summer, either late July or early to mid-August, and Ryan Litt has been in victory lane at the end of the night. Bobby Santos was the fast qualifier, but after that, it was basically Ryan Litt, once we got to feature time, playing Catch Me If You Can. Started third after the redraw, took about a lap and a quarter to end up passed into first place, and he just pretty much embarrassed the field. I don't know how else to put it. I mean, he lapped all the way up to third. Santos was really the only one that could stay with him, and even at that, Santos was about a quarter of a lap behind at the end of it. I mean, it was a masterclass. I joked with Ryan in victory lane. At this point, he might need to find track promoter Don DeWitt and basically just request the deed for Berlin Raceway from Don, because Ryan all but owns that place in pavement sprint car racing these days. It was mighty impressive. Santos second. Joe Ligori extended his point lead with a third place finish. Joe's going for his third championship this season and second in a row. And I want to give a shout out to Kevin Mingus, who was last year's title runner-up out of Ohio, got his best finish of the year in fourth. But he was the one that also, when we were at Berlin in May, had a push rod blow itself out the bottom of the motor on the warm-up laps in May at Berlin, and had just absolute horror nightmares about the place. So to come back, put that behind him, and get his best finish of the season, I was really happy to see that for Kevin, and they were relieved to be able to just roll the car on the trailer under power.
Okay, headline in the must-see world, at least right now, Canadians bacon in must-see racing at this point. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to switch gears and talk some NASCAR because, well, there's a lot to talk about in the NASCAR world right now, including SVG. Back with more in a moment. For over 50 years, FHS Superior Synthetic Oil has powered high-performance engines with unbeatable protection and speed. Whether it's drag racing, go-karts, sprint cars, stock cars, or your daily driver, FHS stands for high speed and delivers every time. Their advanced synthetic oils boost your engine's responsiveness, acceleration, and efficiency, giving you the winning edge on every lap. Visit FHSoil.com today to find the right products for your engine. FHSoil.com.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system, Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join Tracks nationwide on the app today.
Welcome back to the show. This show, as always, being brought to you by Radical Race Gear. If you want to be a champion, you really ought to start by looking like one, and Radical Race Gear can help you do that. All kinds of communication accessories, crew shirts, their sublimated shirts are awesome. Just saw some new carpets coming off the line for people's trailers too. Just gorgeous. Fire suits, suit care, gloves, helmet accessories, shoes, even pop-up tents. They've got it all. RadicalRaceGear.com is the place to go. And we now come back to Jacob, and we're going to talk NASCAR, because while Jacob was off calling sprint cars, SVG was having himself a weekend at the Glen. Mixed results. He and Connor Zilic put on a race for the ages for a little while on Saturday, the Xfinity race, and then unfortunately some contact sent SVG into the wall and out of the event. But on Sunday, he basically just played with everybody. He could have won by far more margin than he did. The question now becomes, Jacob, when we think about playoffs, because we know obviously he's the road course king. And, but we've got some races coming up here. And we, as you look at some of the footage from the Glen, we've got Daytona coming up in a couple weeks. We got Richmond, then we got Daytona. And, we got Darlington, we got Gateway. We've got some tracks coming up that you say, well, he's not a great oval racer yet. That's a little deceptive at this point, right, Jacob?
It is, and I love that we get to talk about this because I've already done the math, so you don't have to.
Good.
If we're asking the question, can he get through round one to get to round two, where, oh, by the way, the Charlotte Roval exists? Absolutely, I believe he can. So I spent some time in the wake of Sunday looking through the last 5 years of the playoff advance line out of the first round. So even if, and I'm not saying he can't get any more points, playoff points, I should say, over the next two races, because really that's what they've got to play for. If you're not thinking you're going to go in and potentially win the race, you're playing for playoff points here. Right. So, strategically, can things happen? Possibly. But even if he doesn't get any more playoff points between now and the start of the postseason, we know going in, he's got 22 playoff points. So that would start him at 2022 in terms of the postseason. The historical average over the last 5 years to transfer to round two on points is 2081. So you do the math there, that's a difference of just 59 points from where you start to where you end after the third race at Bristol. Divide that by 3 races. Basically 20 points a race, whether it's stage points, finish points, or whatever. But even if SVG doesn't get any stage points in all of this, all he has to do is finish 17th on average in those 3 races to get the 20 points per race that he needs to advance on average to round two. Now, will the average be exactly what happens? Maybe, maybe not. But I think that also has to factor in, it's very easy for things to happen to other people going into this first round. There's always going to be something that you don't expect. If SVG can survive, get top 20 finishes, however he has to get them, I think he absolutely is capable of getting to round two. And oh, by the way, tracks in the first round, Darlington, Gateway, Bristol. We didn't get a chance to see what he could or couldn't have done at Bristol because he went out with a suspension failure midway through that race in the spring.
Right.
Darlington, He ran top 20 in the Cup car in the spring and ran top 10 in the Xfinity car last year. So he's going to be confident
Sure
going into
did.
the Southern 500, which is absolutely a survival race. If you just race the track and don't get caught up in something, chances are you're going to have a good finish in the Southern 500. And then Gateway, when you compare, potentially other downforce style ovals, he's had top 20s at Kansas, Michigan, Indianapolis, places where downforce, aero are going to play a factor similar to what they do at Gateway. Is it going to be easy? No. Is it possible? Absolutely.
Well, I agree with that 100%. I think your assessment's right on par. And I think the fact that Darlington is a bit of a wild card track because of how difficult it is just to get through the Southern 500 without Darlington stripes and other issues. This feels very doable. The big question is, because everybody's talking about he's going to be a one round flop, first in, first out, or whatever, however people want to say it. They're all predicting that he's not going to get past round one. And while certainly the tracks in round one are not super easy tracks, when you factor in that, I think one of Shane's biggest advantages, even on the road courses, I think more than his skill with his feet, I think it's in his head. Because while Shane, you watch that race at Watkins Glen, while Shane was busy racing the course and just putting consistent laps together, the entire rest of the NASCAR field seemed more concerned with banging off each other and being over aggressive and trying to stuff their marshmallows into piggy banks. And this is why Shane Van Gisbergen wins all these road course races. It's because the style of racing that he came from, while there certainly is some aggression to it, and the level of courses that he mastered before he ever came here to NASCAR put him above everybody. The biggest thing that Shane's good at is not getting himself into trouble. He's had a few races where, and we saw it a little bit on Saturday, I guess. I think the Zilich deal on Saturday was more or less a little bit of both. But at the end of the day, Shane Van Gisbergen is just plain outsmarting everybody in these races. Yes. He no emotion. He just one lap, next lap, next lap. And I think that's what could get him through round one of the playoffs while everybody's trying to make their big, hairy, audacious moves. Shane's just worried about putting laps together just good enough to get the spots he needs to get through and get to round two, where we presume he will probably win the Roval.
Most likely. And I just to use this as a transition, a pivot point to Xfinity, I just want to make the point with the incident with Zilich the day before. Shane left the door open. Connor took it. Connor was not going to let himself be pushed around because he knew if Shane slammed the door back shut, Connor might not have another opportunity to get past him. So I think that was two very hard racers trying to one up the other. I don't think there was any malicious intent behind it on Connor's part. He just knew that might be his one opportunity. He took it. Shane tried to shut the door, and it was a bit late.
Well, yeah. And I mean, again, let's be real here. These NASCAR guys use every inch of the racetrack, the apron, and anywhere else they're allowed to go, right? And so that's a lot of that is what you see in an incident like that, where Connor swung very wide, tried to come back on. I don't know that Shane really knew what was happening in that moment, and doo-doo occurred, as they say. So, it's a shame. But the interesting part of that is, of course, Connor was able to continue, goes on
and
wins
won
the race,
by the way.
Yeah. And then, we know what happened afterward with falling off the car when he started to celebrate and breaking his collarbone. But before we get there, what did you make of some of the other incidents that happened during that race? I just thought, honestly, there was way too much over aggression and just bad decision making, and Austin Hill chief among them again, unfortunately.
It was messy. It was a messy, but I feel like that's what we've gotten to the last couple years at the Glen. It's been messier than it should be because people know there's one or two guys that you have to beat, and if you can't get close to them on the restarts, you're not even going to have a prayer. And I think a lot of the over aggression has come from people feeling like they have to be aggressive to even have a chance. I think we've seen a lot of that with Austin Hill recently. I do think the battle there with McDowell was a little bit ill-advised, especially given the especially given the level of stuff that he's been involved in lately, the suspension with Almirola, all of that. I just feel like if you're Austin Hill, you need to maybe try to be just a touch
Yeah.
wiser right now in what you're doing. But yeah, obviously the story at the end of it all, of course, after the 16-car track record crash that led to a 45-minute red flag, was Connor winning the race, going to victory lane, and then the slip off the window net to the ground that ultimately ended in the broken collarbone. And I want to start by underscoring, thank God it wasn't worse than what it was, because it
Yes, for sure.
looked much worse from the TV shot. I mean, just because of the angle that the camera shot was in victory lane, I mean, my first instinct was, oh my God, he fell on his neck.
Yeah.
So this
Yep.
could have been so much worse. Thank goodness it wasn't career altering. If he has to miss a race, and I'm not completely guaranteed to think that he will just yet, because
Me
he did
neither.
have surgery already. He's had surgery. He's had pins and a plate put in the collarbone. Shane Van Gisbergen made the point that after winning Sunday, that he had a broken collarbone once, had the plate put in, and then raced the next race.
Yep.
We'll see what Connor does. The next race for Xfinity is obviously Daytona. But he's in a tight regular season championship battle. He's 7 points ahead of Justin Allgaier. So to me, if I'm Junior Motorsports, if there is any way at all that NASCAR will clear Connor to start the race, come down, get somebody to relief drive Daytona for safety, for not taking a huge hit, I'm taking it if NASCAR gives me the opportunity, because if you can manage to piece together a regular season championship for Zilich despite all this, oh my God, what an advantage that could be for the playoffs.
Okay, we're going to talk more about that. Hold that thought. We're going to step aside one more time. We come back more on Zilich and lots more to come as this show winds down. Stay with us.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
For over 50 years, FHS Superior Synthetic Oil has powered high-performance engines with unbeatable protection and speed. Whether it's drag racing, go-karts, sprint cars, stock cars, or your daily driver, FHS stands for high speed and delivers every time. Their advanced synthetic oils boost your engine's responsiveness, acceleration, and efficiency, giving you the winning edge on every lap. Visit FHSoil.com today to find the right products for your engine. FHSoil.com. Welcome back to the show. We continue to talk about Connor Zilich because, Jacob, this is an interesting scenario. Connor's already been given a waiver for the back injury that he has previously had, and now we're looking at the possibility of having to have a second waiver in order to accommodate this most recent injury. I believe that would be a first in NASCAR history that a driver's been waived twice in the same season, but I see no reason why he shouldn't get it. Do you?
No, he'll absolutely get it. NASCAR's pretty much already indicated as much if he needs it. And like I was saying before the break, the big thing right now is we don't know if it's going to be required, because even if he starts Daytona and gets a relief driver, even if he were to start, the last couple
Correct.
races before the
Right.
regular season and have a relief driver, a second waiver would not be necessary because he would be credited as the starting driver and therefore not have missed a race. So this only comes down to if he does not physically start one of these
Right.
last 3 races prior to the playoffs. Now, even if that's needed, he's going to get it. I mean, NASCAR's already made the point that obviously they're sympathetic to the situation. This was a freak thing. Nobody in a million years expected it to even be possible, but it's something that happened. Obviously, it's something that has to be dealt with and addressed if need be. And to me, what's crazy about all this is we had all this craziness on Saturday at the Glen, and then Sunday for the second race in a row, not only did we not have true craziness as far as a big accident or anything like that, moving to my stat of the week, if you will, going back to Iowa Speedway the week before, we had 2 races back to back with 0 DNFs, all drivers finishing the race at both Iowa and Watkins Glen.
Yep.
First time ever in the history of the Cup Series for 76 years now that has happened. Wild
Wow.
to think that it's
That's
the first
crazy.
time ever that that's happened, but we've had 2. Well, it's crazy. We Iowa, you don't think of as a clean race, but we didn't have people hitting much of anything. We just had people not falling out due to crash damage.
Yeah, that's a crazy stat. I didn't realize that. Hard to believe, although, in this day and age, that is one of the things about this next
Yep,
gen car. It seems like we have less
it's very
breakdowns,
it's a
less motor
it's a
issues.
bulletproof tank.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if that's all good or bad, but we could discuss that on another show. Want to keep going here and maybe a little bit of a rapid fire kind of thing, some other NASCAR
Yep.
issues to get through. Spire making a change. Andre Perez out of the Spire 77 truck, Coil of Joy in. I start to hear talk about maybe drivers that would be in that truck next year, or are we sticking to the trucks going away?
So Spire at this point is going from 4 trucks down to 3. What was the 07 is now the 77, and what was the 77 is no more. So they've downsized from 4 trucks to 3
Okay.
trucks for the balance of the season. Andres Perez actually has been given clearance and moved to Nice Motorsports to take over
Yeah,
the 44
we
truck
saw that.
for the balance of
Yeah.
the year, with Bailey Curry, who was in the 44, moving to the 45 now to
45.
replace Kaden Honeycutt. Giant game of musical chairs, and the other part-time drivers who were originally going to be in the 44 when Bailey wasn't in the 44, in Josh Balicki and Connor Jones, now getting added to a 4th Nice entry, the 41, making a comeback so that they can still run their scheduled races for the rest of the year. It's the giant game of musical chairs, and somehow it's worked out that everybody still has a seat when the music stops. Um, but it just kind of a wild last 2 or 3 weeks in the Truck Series.
Okay, so speaking of having a seat, we know that Chris Bell did a really nice job filling in for Stewart Friesen in the 52
He did.
Toyota truck. And now Kaden Honeycutt has a seat for the remainder of the year in that truck starting this week at Richmond. So quickly, your expectations for Kaden?
Absolutely in the top 10. I don't see any reason for him to not be unless he gets dumped in short track style. But the Friesen 52 has had speed this year. Kaden has had a lot of speed, and really, I feel like lifted Nice in a lot of cases beyond what the other 2 trucks were doing at that team at that time. I feel like Kaden plus the 52 is a big win, and I fully expect him to be able to contend both for the Drivers' Championship for himself and for the owner's title for the 52 team as well.
So that makes an interesting thought, because if Kaden can get up there and run, we know that the 62 truck is also going to be run off and on throughout this period. We've got Cole Butcher coming up out of the ASA late model season to drive it. So I wonder if we see something next year. Now, maybe it's not Kaden. Maybe he is really going to the 11, but I wonder if we see something next year to see Kaden in the 62 truck, if in fact the rumors of the 11 truck are not true, which we kind of think they are. We'll keep our eye on that. Quick question here. This is a question of the week. Can either Kyle Busch or Austin Dillon win and get in at Richmond? We know what happened there last year. Can a miracle happen again?
No. I'm just going to be very frank on that. No, a miracle. Could a miracle happen? Okay, in some alternate reality, maybe. But will it happen? No, I don't believe that for a second. There are too many good drivers. There have been too many dominant drivers on short tracks this year for me to think that either the 3 or the 8 will be able to put a whole race together and even have a chance at the end of Richmond, let alone actually be able to win it and seal the deal.
I'm saying no for Austin Dillon. I'm not seeing that again. That was an extraordinary circumstance. I'm saying maybe yes for Kyle Busch. I think this is a track where Kyle could actually, if he can just stay out of trouble, I think there's a chance that Kyle Busch wins and gets in. But of course, there's a race after this at a place called Daytona where you just play basically 40 car pickup and draw a number out of a hat and it wins a race. So I think more likely we see RCR have a shot at that rather than at Richmond. But we'll see where this goes.
Speedway cars are always good. And I want to give a quick shout out, by the way, to Alex Palou. Second time in 3 years, he has locked up the championship in the NTT IndyCar Series prior to the final race. Four time in 5 years. He's got 2 more oval races to try and tie the single season win record. I don't know that he'll be able to do that just with how many players there tend to be on the ovals, but regardless, to me, one of the most dominant seasons in modern American open wheel racing that I feel like I've ever seen, and maybe any of us have ever seen. He is the absolute gold standard right now. I think similar to what we talked about when Dario Franchitti's era at Chip Ganassi or even Dixie for the early part of Scott's career was. It's just, to me, it's remarkable what he's done lately, and didn't get the win at Portland, but still on the podium and still as good as anybody.
He was the show as far as I'm concerned. It still is the Palou show. Congrats to Will Power, though, putting together a Penske win for the first time in like a year. And I'm glad it was Will that did it. Yeah, I'm glad it was Will that did it too, because now it makes the speculation even more interesting of whether or not it's enough for him to stave off being replaced by David Malukas for Penske in 26. We'll see how that goes. And Jacob, again, from Raceface Digital, thanks for being with us here. And wow, we have come to the end of another episode of the Tom Baker Show. It's been fun. We look forward to next week already. For more great content, steeringwheelnation.com is the place to start. We've also, we're on X and we're on Facebook and Instagram at The Wheel Nation. And of course, you can find me, Tom Baker TV, on Instagram and on LinkedIn. Until next time, have a great weekend. So long.